Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at your horoscopes for the month of August. I am very excited today to also be introducing a new team of collaborators and contributors to the channel. So I'm super excited. I know that a lot of you will also really miss Alex and Dana working on horoscopes with me. And I'll also tell you about how you can stay in touch with them. They're going to be doing some bonus content on the channel in August. And so you'll have a way of continuing to connect with them while also getting to know some wonderful new astrologers that will be helping me break down your horoscopes month by month. This month, we're going to be looking at the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the sign of Cancer. So we'll talk more about that today at the beginning. And then I have 4 wonderful new astrologers who are going to be contributing panel style that I'm really excited to introduce you to. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help our channel to grow. It's my hope that this channel is a place for your daily spiritual practice. If astrology is a part of your spiritual life, then it's really my hope that everything we do at Nightlight will contribute to that, to the depth of that spiritual lifestyle. Anyway, liking and subscribing helps us grow a lot, and we really do appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. A few things to mention on the website. I'm going to take you over there right now. I am very excited to share the webinar for August. So you go over to the events page, click on live talks, and you're going to see that for the month of August on the 14th, we have a talk on the 7th house. This is the house of marriage, love, relationships. We're going to talk about why this house is associated with those topics. And we're going to talk about how you can read and get the most out of an understanding of the 7th house in your birth chart. What is that karma that is in your chart around love, relationships, marriage, intimacy? We're also going to talk more broadly about the house as a place that pertains to pleasure and desire. That's an ancient designation in Indian astrology that's really fascinating. So anyway, be sure to register for that on the 14th. If you can't attend the live webinar on Thursday evening, August 14th, then you'll get the replay link later, as you do with all of our talks. The other thing that's not on our website yet, but it's about to be, is we are going to be hosting our first ever Nightlight training program in retreat style. So we're going to be hosting a retreat in Mexico for a full week in June of 2026. That retreat we will be starting to promote it and advertise it next week, and it will go on sale on August 11th, I believe it is. Anyway, so stay tuned for more information on that. That's going to be a full week-long, brand new immersive training program that we have that will be taking place at a beautiful retreat center in Mexico next June. So I'll be telling you more about that in detail next week, but I want to just put it on the radar right now. So anyway, on that note, I am super excited to introduce you to our new co-hosts. Bring them all on. Hey.
Hey guys.
Hey. Hey. I'm so excited for all of you to meet our new new horoscopic astrologers for our monthly horoscopes. First of all, before I introduce you to these wonderful people, I have to say that we were overwhelmed with amazing auditions from, I think it was almost 200 people. There was an embarrassment of riches, as I think that's how the phrase goes, when it came to super talented people coming out of our Nightlight programs, many of whom there were a lot of hard choices. And I feel really, really good about the people that we've brought on here. And also you'll see some new faces in our monthly overviews that we do, where you would typically have seen Alexandra and Whitney and myself break things down. There'll also be some new panelists there. The vision behind hosting new panelists every year coming through our Nightlight programs is something that came up for me during my 8th house perfection year. My mentor died during my 8th house perfection year. He gave me an opportunity through a well-established platform to start sharing my astrological insights and budding, abilities as an astrologer. And because I had a platform that gave me an opportunity to grow and learn and share, my career took off. And while he passed, right after he passed, I decided, you know what? Every year we're going to bring in new panelists from within the Nightlight community, and I'm going to give back. It's like making good on that 8th house contract kind of thing. So we decided last year, right after that happened, to bring in, you might remember Alexandra and Whitney and Dana all coming in as new faces. And then we said every year we're going to host a year of new panelists, new faces. And then in the second year, after the panelists rotate out, they will be given opportunities, those panelists will be, to create some bonus content for our weekends, month in and month out, because I create contents for Monday through Friday. So there's a little bit of a space for some interesting bonus content. So you're going to see Alexandra, Whitney, Dana, Alex with some bonus content on the weekends between now, August of 2025 and August of 2026, when these panelists will be transitioning into creating that bonus content, and another new set of panelists will come in. And the vision is to do that year after year to help grow talented astrologers from within our community. So on that note, I'm just very excited to introduce you to new astrologers, Kelsey, Mal, Q, and Emily. Q also goes by Qnice, but nickname is Q. So I'm very excited to introduce you to them. They are all wonderful, interesting, talented astrologers who've come through our Nightlight programs. I'd like to give you guys just an opportunity to each maybe say a little something about yourselves. People will obviously get to know you as we just do horoscopes month by month over the course of the next year. But maybe we'll just start with Kelsey and kind of go around the circle and maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into astrology and everything like that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey. It's so great to be here. My background in astrology, well, it's always been a part of my life subtly. I've always been interested in learning different systems here and there, but it wasn't until I found this very YouTube channel, actually, a couple years ago. Must have been like 2018, 2019. And then around 2020, I did Nightlight 22. And that really helped me marry and merge my two worlds. So I have a background in mental health, and it's been so nice to have a structure through the Nightlight courses so that my work in astrology really informs my work with my clients. And so that's been really magical to have a community like this. I would also say, my work with my clients has also informed my astrology consultations as well, and how I approach them in general. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to doing horoscopes for all of you and offering some of my insights along with learning from you guys as well.
I'm going to tell you how you can stay in touch with Kelsey and all of our panelists, how you can book readings with them, how you can follow their own creative content on their own platforms as they're working on new things. I'll do that at the end today. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to sort of briefly introduce themselves. But Mal, tell us a little bit about yourself. And thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah. Hey, guys. I'm Mal. I'm a professional astrologer in the Chicagoland area. I have a really big 9th house, though, so I'm a bit of a nomad, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'll be filming from different locations throughout this year. But I'm super excited to film with you guys and be a part of the Nightlight team. And the other thing I was thinking about with the beginning of my astrology journey, I think I might relate to a lot of you, because my astrology journey started with the book, that coffee table book called The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we've all learned that's not the only astrology book you'll ever need. But that around 12, I got my hands on it, and it created a deep obsession. And that's how I got here today, I really think.
It's so funny. Isn't it funny how astrology for many people, if we're really honest, we would describe it as something that at some early point was an obsession. Totally. It's true. People get bit by the bug, and then, it levels off at some point, but just almost like an insatiable hunger to learn more about it when you first get going.
Oh, yeah. And some of us just take that obsession too far, and then we become professional astrologers. And yeah,
absolutely. I can't wait for everyone to get to know Mal as the year goes on. They're a really special person. And let's hear a little bit from Q.
Yes, yes. So funny that you're speaking of obsession because, yes, that's quite literally how my intro to astrology kind of started. I was always like a public library, Barnes and Noble kid. They were literally like right across the street from one another. So, like, I would bounce back and forth sniffing the astrology books with my mom, and like really just like immersing myself in a lot of the sun astrology that was out at the time. I have like a lot of Scorpio placements. So there was a particular book that like my mind I can immediately think about when I reflect back on my beginnings of like astrology knowledge. There was this book that was like all the bad and horrible traits of each zodiac sign that will make you hate them forever. And I was just like, I was like, well, dang, hold on. I need to know because what's going on? And I'm a Gemini sun, Sag rising, Scorpio moon with, like I said, this Scorpio stellium. And so, like, knowledge, wisdom, chit chat, conversation, learning about the self and other has always just been like something I've been thoroughly interested in. Like Kelsey, I do have a background in mental health, and I've like my journey has always been healing of some sort. So I started off wanting to be an American Sign Language interpreter, then like mental health. I wanted to be family and like um, yeah, family therapist as well, sex therapist too, because I'm just like, oh, there's so much healing that needs to take place. And I think with each journey that I've taken, I've just learned a little bit more about myself and my purpose and the tools that I can provide the world and the ways that I heal. And astrology has always been like that soundboard, I guess. I started off obsessed in Barnes and Nobles, and then I got older, and people were like, "Hey, you kind of got to relax on this." But then I matured, and I kept learning, and I kept seeking and telling the universe I wanted to learn in this particular way. And I came across Nightlight, and around same as Kelsey. 2019, 2020, and it's been great. I took the 3 classes and I learned so much. It's provided me a lot of self-validation and the knowledge that I think I intuitively am tapped into, but just needed that outside validation of Adam's wisdom and the cohorts that I've been blessed to be a part of. And this is like a new chapter that I'm so excited to be a part of. So I am excited to meet all of you and learn from all of you and just grow with you over this next year for sure.
Thank you, Q. You know what I love about the Gemini Scorpio combination, because I've had a few friends throughout the course of my life with some elements of that combination, is I'm someone who loves to go really deep, but the depth to me is still like fun and poppy and kind of casual. I've got Mars in Gemini and Uranus in Scorpio. And like, I love how Gemini people can, with Scorpio combination, can kind of flit about and keep it light, but there's no lack of depth or substance at the exact same time. I love that. It's such a good thing to have as an astrologer too. So anyway, I just admire that about you. Obviously, we've gotten to talk a little bit because Q's come to some of our local events in Minneapolis. So
oh yes, I'm based out of Minneapolis. There we go.
I hope you didn't mind if I just realized that maybe
no, you're good. No.
Anyhow, yeah. So Emily, tell us a little bit about you, and we can't wait to hear about you as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emily, and I was literally going to use the phrase "bit by the bug" that Adam already used, but in the very early days of the pandemic, had always skirted around astrology and found it interesting. But my background was in dance, and so that was my obsession. Was the performing arts for a long time, and then I got bit by the astrology bug. Was obsessive, voraciously self-taught, and came to Nightlight in 2022. Have gone through all of the programs with the exception of Horary, but everything else pretty much, master classes and all of that. And have really, I have so much gratitude for Adam and this company because I have gotten my start here as a professional, and I'm so grateful to be here and to be continuing to see what the next step is in terms of being a content creator and taking my astrology out there to more people besides just client work, which I love. Just thrilled to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Now, Emily is, for the past almost year now, has been one of our alumni student readers in the Affordable Reading Clinic. And so she'll be serving in that capacity through October when we have our turnover of those readers. So we'll tell you more about how you can get in touch with Emily at the end. And one of the ways you can get in touch with her is through the affordable reading service that we provide. I love that. I think what everyone is going to see that we were so impressed by as a staff when we saw your auditions is your intelligence, your thoughtfulness, the unique way you articulate, and the unique ways that your personalities, backgrounds, life experiences come to bear on how you think about and talk about astrology. And we love that. In addition to the fact that for us, it matters that there's this intangible quality for us about heart-centeredness. There were so many people, obviously, who applied that I would describe as coming right from the heart, but it really stood out for us as a staff when we saw your audition videos, just how much heart was in them. So we really, we're just really happy to have you all here. And on that note, should we get into some of our horoscopes for August?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've got our transit of the month that we're going to be looking at through your horoscopes is going to be Venus conjoining Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Most astrologers, when we map out our major transits month by month for a year ahead, will circle some of what we see as the subjectively best looking astrology and some of the most challenging. And I am very pleased to announce this, as opposed to major outer planets shifting signs and Saturn entering its fall and like all the eclipses and all of the having a conjunction between the benefics with an exalted Jupiter is, I think, a really uplifting transit. It's nice because we're going to get right into eclipses again in September. We have retrogrades back into Pisces, a bunch of stuff that's going to start happening once we get into autumn in the northern hemisphere. This benefic conjunction between Venus and Jupiter stands out. It will actually return in June of 2026. We'll get 2 iterations of this conjunction right now in August and again in June of 26 before Jupiter leaves Cancer. There's a lot of ways of thinking about this. Before we talk about it as a panel, what we're going to do for your horoscopes, new format with 4 panelists. Each of our panelists is going to be taking an elemental family and breaking down your horoscope. I'll tell you how that goes as we go along. I'll then offer some feedback on each sign, and then we'll open for any of our other panelists to jump in on signs other than their own. And therefore, we'll create some good conversation around all of your signs. So we're going to be taking Venus conjoined Jupiter through all 12 signs for your horoscopes. But before we do that, to me, the thing that I love about benefic, the benefics coming together, I don't want to overhype and say like you're going to win the lottery, every good imaginable, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver with horoscopes like these. And a lot of astrologers, because it's a major conjunction between benefics and because we're thinking about clicks and likes, will blow this way out of proportion. So I want to say that first. A conjunction between the benefics is nice. Subjectively, it's a good looking transit. Probably people who have planets in the middle degrees of cardinal signs will experience this a little bit, maybe more than others, right? Angular house placements may matter, like having a cardinal sign rising. So it's not going to look and feel the same for everyone. We say that a lot on this channel. Context really matters in your birth chart. One thing that is really nice about 2 planets like this is when you have an exalted benefic in Jupiter, you already have a Jupiter that's very fertile, that likes to grow and support things, and especially the things that we have a lot of emotional investment in. So when you think about Venus and Jupiter coming together, the first thing that comes to my mind is it's a very supportive energy emotionally. It's a very fertile combination that can help grow things and support things on the level of, first level I would think of would be emotions, that insofar as we need to be invested in something emotionally for it to work, for it to grow, for it to succeed. This is a combination that will make it clear to us, I need emotional investment. Here it is. Here's an outpouring of enthusiasm or excitement or commitment emotionally to something. And therefore, it has a lush, fertile place to start growing from, or to continue growing or flourishing or developing from. But on the other hand, there's also in a transit like this, that the opposite can be true. Things that are not filled with life, that aren't filled with a sincere level of emotional investment, can suddenly stand out. Oh, I'm not so invested in something. Something will occur that makes us realize we need that emotional investment. And so even if this transit comes across as evidence of where something is lacking in emotional commitment, that can still be a really positive, fertile thing, because at least it's clarifying. Those are a few things that come to my mind right away. But I would love to hear from all of you. What do you think about Venus, Jupiter, and Cancer? What are some thoughts that come to your mind about this transit? What could we think about generally for all of us given this combination?
I've been getting the image of, we just had that long Mars retrograde through Cancer that was so ouchy for so many people. I've been getting the image of like a tide pool. At the end of the day, the water has been gone out for a long time. What little water is left in the pools is like dissipating. The anemone are all like, they're sinking in, they're cold, they're like, dried out. And like all the muscles are really tightly, hugging the rocks and everything. And this transit feels like the tide finally rising enough to like wash in over that and to just kind of like sink down into the cracks and soften things and quench. It feels I'm thinking a lot of hydrating words like quenching, healing, infusing, buoying. That's kind of what I'm seeing as a general feeling with this transit. Right. Is that image.
Love that. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, I was also thinking about the healing qualities of Jupiter, Venus, and Cancer, and I think it's great to be starting the horoscopes with something like this, because I think a lot of us need it, considering what we've been through with the Mars retrograde. And I think something that's been coming to mind is, have you all heard of EMDR therapy?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that.
Is that the rapid eye movement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's been on my mind. I'm going to see if I can try to explain this. But I was thinking about how Uranus is in Gemini, and there's a lot of new currents that are circuiting through us. And in aversion to that is going to be Venus joining Jupiter. And right now, Venus is with Uranus. So I'm feeling like there's some sort of EMDR going on where we might not be able to see and witness some of the changes that are going on, but we're almost feeling it through either the relationships and the supportive people and resources that we have around us. But it's also just like an inner knowing that, I don't know if y'all are feeling it too, but some of the people I've been reading for are kind of like, yeah, I'm actually feeling this over here, but like over here, I'm actually totally fine. Or like, I'm seeing that I'm going to arrive to being totally fine soon. And so I'm witnessing and feeling that myself.
That's fascinating. Kelsey, like what it brings to my mind is I've been talking about that juxtaposition between air and water a lot recently, as I've been thinking about Uranus and Pluto getting together in air signs. I've been reading a lot in my own, kind of ongoing private personal studies about ancient elemental theory. And one of the ways that ancients thought about air was water in the sky, invisible water in the sky, because obviously the air condenses and falls to earth in the form of rain. So that air is always turning into water. And they were a natural pairing of opposites in some ancient elemental like schemas of the elements. So one thing that's really interesting about the 1940s, and I've mentioned this a few times on the channel, is that when Uranus was in Gemini in the 40s, it was one of the most accelerated periods of growth for the field of psychology. A lot of our validation of psychology as an academic, intellectual, even scientific pursuit was taking place while Uranus was in Gemini. Well, even though a lot of that is kind of intellectual, rational, theoretical understanding of the mind, it's also this process of illuminating an understanding of emotions and emotional behavioral dynamics. And so there's this funny way in which the emphasis on air has this kind of unseen but inevitable connection to water. So like, for example, during the 1940s, we were also advancing more rapidly than any other period in time in terms of our understanding of PTSD from people coming back from World War II. Well, there's a delayed onset of trauma that's almost like a dissociative effect between air and water that's happening. So the thing that I love about what you're saying is that, yeah, like Venus is coming out of Gemini, where it's just been kind of co-present with Uranus, going right into that conjunction with Jupiter. It does seem to speak to the juxtaposition between air and water, and that there might be some interesting differences between things that we're holding mentally, or we're able to almost detach from and see objectively, whereas other things we're being asked to go right into and almost like touch and feel, and the emotional connection is important. But there's this, there's an interesting juxtaposition between air and water.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the idea that this transit is kind of helping us get to a more healed version of ourselves, or transmute some kind of trauma that, you know, is still sitting somewhere in the subconscious, and it's that water that really helps us release it. And something that I like to do with transits is I actually like to find like a celebrity chart who has that in their chart, and see like how they're displaying it in their life. And just coincidentally, I came across that Drew Barrymore has a Venus Jupiter conjunction in her 10th house. It's actually in Pisces, but I think it's the same idea. Isn't she such a good example of Venus Jupiter conjunction? I mean, she just displays this raw emotional vulnerability. If you've seen clips from her like recent talk shows, she's like basically like holding hands with her guests and having these like deeply emotive conversations. You almost feel like you're dipping into someone's like really super intimate conversation. And, you know, at the same time, oh my gosh, is Drew Barrymore such a good example of someone who's taken some really deep Venus Jupiter trauma, you know, being in Hollywood as a kid, her mom taking her to Studio 54, you know, as a 5 or 6 year old. She has, you know, that past with drug addiction, and she's really been able to transmute that through this deep, compassionate, open water sign heart. So I was just thinking about her and that energy with this one.
Oh, that's a great, you know, what I love about that, Mal, and then I want to hear what you think, Q. I love, you know, I was thinking about people myself who have the Venus Jupiter conjunction, and I'm a big fan of the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia was born with the Venus Jupiter in Cancer, and first of all, he struggled throughout his life with drug addiction, and one of the things that he talked about very openly in relation to his drug addiction is that he had so many feelings, and the intensity of emotions and creative energies flowing through him was a lot. And then he couldn't go out in public without being swarmed. And so he ended up feeling very isolated, filled with a huge amount of intense, powerful emotions. And drugs was one of the ways that he dealt with feeling isolated with a boatload of intense emotions. So I find that really interesting, because it's not totally dissimilar from what Drew Barrymore went through as a kid, getting swarmed, the overwhelm. Anthony Edwards is an NBA star who has the conjunction as well, and he lost his family at an early age, and then was basically adopted and raised by friends in his high school. And similar in terms of a player that emotes hugely, like he is just a charismatic superstar emotionally, has a really deep, complicated background with loss in the family. I think that's really interesting. And Jerry Garcia is another good example in terms of someone who, the combination of those energies, like when people talk about him as a guitar player. They talk about someone whose extension of their feelings into the guitar literally created jam band culture, right? Which is exploring emotions through improvisation. So yeah, it's such a fascinating combination, and I'm glad that you brought up someone with it, because I've been thinking a lot about those two are people in my orbit that are, interesting to me. But anyway, thank you. That was brilliant. I love that. Q, tell us, what do you think?
So with Jupiter being like my ruling planet for my natal chart as a Sag rising, I have set with Jupiter quite a bit, trying to understand it. My natal Jupiter lives in the 12th house, so it's a little like watery and mysterious for me. So one of the things that I have really tapped into, specifically looking at this transit, is Jupiter's functionality. Like, it's the planet of functionality as well. It gives function to the form that we work with. And so as this amplifier planet, it amplifies how whatever it comes in contact with functions and how it functions best. So with Venus meeting Jupiter with this transit, I was sitting with, well, how will Jupiter show up to help us function well within our relationships, our love, our receptivity, our relationship to our values, the things that we desire, and is rooted in this very Cancerian emotional attunement, intuitive energy. So it's like, it's an amplified moment in time, wherever this falls in your chart, for you to kind of sit with what you're in relationship with and how is it sustaining you? How is it fertilizing your vitality, whatever your goals, your dreams are, wherever this like transit is falling. And you all have mentioned how like nourishing it is, how healing it will be. And I'm just like, okay, bet, well, how can we best like tap into this energy of Jupiter being like, hey, babes, I'm highlighting how you can function better within love, within healing, like I said, emotional nourishment, and like an inner safety, because Jupiter and Cancer for me is like how Jupiter can expand your container, your capacity, your fortress of home, and invite other people into that container that you are expanding and like fortifying within self. Because if it's a well of healing and emotional nourishment that you live with, you can easily pour it out into your hobbies, into your communities, into your career. But it has to be self-contained within your own journey, your own purpose, your own knowing of self, and relationship to self and love, essentially. So I looked at this like, oh wow, this is going to be painful to some degree, because I think Jupiter is expanding our abilities to understand our emotional journey, in our relationships as well. So there's not this ability to kind of just be like, oh, I don't know. Like Kelsey was saying, it's like, no, I know. Like, no, baby, Jupiter is giving you the wisdom, the understanding. Jupiter is very mental. So it's just like, it's bringing this mental functionality to emotional experiences, right? So we have that capability of like Venus having just, or is in Gemini now, is going to be coming out of Gemini, is bringing this capability to express, communicate what those desires are that we've been exploring with Venus being in Gemini, especially with it living with Uranus, and these like downloads were happening for all of us. We're like, really, now Jupiter's like, okay, baby, the soil is right. Now's the time to get it moving. So I've been really excited with that. Also, like you said, it's going to be, it's painful to heal. It's not always just this like really great feeling. The therapy that you were talking about, Kelsey, that's intense. Like, I've heard amazing things about it. People who have tried it, they have, at least what I've experienced from the conversations I've had, they have said how profoundly healing it's been. But like also how every time they're going in for their session, they're like, oh my God, are we about to do this? Like, are we really about to dive in this way? It's not like ayahuasca, Adam, you've expressed it like, hey, you shouldn't just be doing this every Saturday. That's not what this is. You do it and you're good. I think that Jupiter is right now with Venus is like, hey, I'm trying to help you all function well in relationship, in emotional capacity and understanding within self and other, especially with the world around us. That's so important. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been sitting with.
I was also thinking about how earlier this year, when Mars was in Cancer, Venus was with Saturn, and they were in a trine. And like, I'm just feeling a little bit of a connection there, just because the ruler of the conjunction is going to be the moon in Pisces. And that's where the conjunction with Venus Saturn was. So it's almost like, excuse me, it's almost like there's something that we've actually known for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Very much that energy.
it's now like becoming a little softer to integrate. Like it's more of like our idea now. Maybe before it wasn't our idea.
I love that.
Right.
That's a nice little touch. It makes me think of the fact that I've been talking past couple of months, especially around the Jupiter-Saturn square. I was talking a lot about Jupiter. We think a lot about Jupiter in terms of words like expansion. But one of the basic meanings of Jupiter in ancient astrology was connected to the word telos, or like teleology. What is the purpose for which something is born or appears, or and Jupiter in Cancer, the gateway of mankind, suggests that the appearance of life in the cosmos is purposeful. It has a function, as Q was saying. And by function, we don't have to think of it as mechanical. I think the function in Cancer is love. You know, it's connection, it's devotion, it's nurturance, it's fostering a feeling of safety, all of those good Cancerian things. But I love that Q mentioned Venus coming into contact with Jupiter, and Jupiter being like, how can we enhance the purpose, direction, functionality of love, of emotions, of our relationships. And, you know, as a parent, I think of the first year of my daughter arriving in this world, my oldest, even the first year of my second daughter. In those years, my capacity to love was greatly expanded, but that was also painful to be cracked open, you know? So I love that Q also brought up this idea that the expansion of love and almost like the wisdom of Jupiter saying, like, how do you love yourself? How do you love others? How do you connect more deeply, more fully, with more emotional intelligence? That's not always an easy thing to look at, even if it's beneficial. Like, I am a much better person for being cracked open and becoming a dad, but that wasn't easy, you know? So I love that you mentioned that. It's very important. Yeah. Well, on that note, because believe me, 5 of us could chat on about this for a long time easily. And that's why I'm so happy that you're all here, because I just love the way you all think and talk about astrology. Let's get into our horoscopes. Can you see the chart on the screen? Just making sure it's there.
Yep.
If we're not up, let's mute ourselves. And then don't forget to unmute yourself if you're going to chime in. So the way that we've done this is fire is going to go to Q. Earth is going to go to Mal. Kelsey's going to cover air. Emily's going to cover water. I'm going to chime in as we go. And we're just going to take a few minutes for each sign to look at this conjunction, which is August 11th. So you'll see the conjunction. Well, you know what? It might even be like just barely into the 12th by the time it gets there. I believe it is. But anyway, it's late night, the 11th, into early morning of the 12th in the United States. You're going to check your own time zone. And if you're in a different country, be sure that you look at your ephemeris for the exact timing. But either way, we're going to start with Aries. Q's going to take us through the fire signs. I'll pitch in. Everyone else will join in with some thoughts as well. We've got Venus and Jupiter conjoining here in the 4th house. Let me get my epic pen out. It's run away from me. Okay, here you are. All right, so I'll highlight it, and Q, take us away. What do you see? What do you see for Aries rising or Aries sun signs out there? Whatever, you can listen for your sun or rising as always. So what do you see for Aries, Q?
Yeah, so for Aries, this falling in your house of home, of inner sanctuary, comfort, ancestral, like stories that you've told yourself and that you've kind of sustained yourself off of. I was looking at how, again, Jupiter is functioning with Venus through this Cancerian lens of self-healing, of self-comfort, of relying on support, because Aries is very much a fire sign, very much like about the doing of it all. Resting, nesting, pouring into the emotional realm is kind of like a side quest, I feel, with Aries sometimes. Like, hey, I feel something, I'm acting on it, we'll deal with the emotions and the questions afterwards. But with this transit, I think that Jupiter and Venus is really, again, like allowing an opportunity of softness to enter the chat and for you to kind of be like, oh, let me actually sit with what it feels like to be in relationship to other in my home, in my family realm, and my relationship to the stories that I've been told about who I am and how I've sustained myself up until now.
Yeah.
I was looking at the like Cancer Capricornian axis as well for Aries risings at least, and there's this energy of wanting to do, but with the fourth house being like the roots of the natal chart in the individual, I'm looking at it like if the natal chart was a tree, the fourth house are the roots, and if Aries aren't paying attention and pouring into and tending to their emotional roots, it's going to be very hard for them to stand on their legacy or to have something foundational for their legacy to stand on. So that 10th house becomes stronger when they're pouring into that fourth house and pouring into the relational bonds that they have, familial bonds that they have, whether they're creating those bonds with family and creating family bonds like communities, or if those are family bonds and communities that have been passed down to them, are they working for them? Are they emotionally nourishing them and sustaining them? And what does it feel like for an Aries to kind of relinquish a little bit of that independence that they most likely rely on and kind of allow to override that emotional realm a bit? What would it look like for them now to soften into that, to allow this abundance of like either people coming in who feel like family or allowing things to come into the home that just like provide this sense of inner sanctuary, like security, inner homeness. Wherever they go, they can bring that with them. I think that Jupiter Venus right now is really providing just opportunity for them to sit with that and say, hey, what is it that I actually genuinely need to sustain vitality that is like reaching my fiery peaks, my fiery inspiration and intuitive knowing of what I want and I desire? How does that still like play in relationship to the fact that I belong to family, I belong somewhere.
Hmm.
I always belong somewhere. And even if my belonging starts with self, it still lends itself outside of me. This moment is just a very, again, fertile moment for them to have that chance to calm down a bit, I think, relax a little bit. So yeah, that's off rip what I was kind of thinking about with Aries when I'm like, oh, they like
Mhm.
to do, but this doesn't give let's get up and go. It's like let's sit and be a little bit.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
The the direction, the only thing that I'll add as maybe riffing off from what you're saying is that strong Aries rising quality of being independent. Um,
Yes.
and what I really liked is I liked how you were working the tension between your independent strength, productivity, action, that sense of being on a mission in life that's self-driven, that in some ways it's only as good as your ability to tap into the most vulnerable inner private spaces. They're still there, they're still important. And so where do you get that kind of emotional, those nutrients at the roots are still so vital, even if you are a person that is fiery, self-motivated. And even if some of that for Aries, quite frankly, will have come, I have to be independent because maybe in the past, for some Aries listening, the emotional nourishment of home and family wasn't there. So I had to do it myself.
Yes.
And so is there an opportunity now for friends, family, community of different kinds, maybe not your original family, to be there? Is there a partnership? Are you moving in with roommates? Or like, where is that emotional well? Where can you find an emotional well if there wasn't one in the past that was super supportive? Maybe there's one growing right now. Things like that. Or maybe there's healing with some of the roots in the, root systems, like almost like I think of like transplanting a plant from one pot to a different one. Sometimes plants need that. It's like, I'm not going to be healthy if you don't transfer me to a more spacious environment somehow. Those are some of the things that come up to my mind, Q.
No, that's
Anyone else?
perfectly in
What do you
line.
think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll just open it up as we roll around here. Anyone else want to chime in on the Aries rising?
I could just say I thought about endings that feel challenging and beautiful and needed, just
Love that.
because the rulers of the 7th and the 12th are in the 4th, and I just thought of endings, but it could be in so many different contexts as it's in an angle.
I mean, the 4th house is called a moksha house in Indian astrology. If you think about moksha in a super basic, everyday way, the 4th house is where you come home from the office, you shut the door on the outer world, you rest, you watch Netflix, you go to bed and you sleep and you dream. So that sense of like releasing from the world. But if you take that a little deeper philosophically, I love the idea that, yeah, the rulers of the 7th and the 12th coming together in the 4th might be a release or from some kind of bondage or a freeing up or a letting go. That's a really beautiful way of thinking about it. Anyone else? Good. All right, let's move on. We'll go. Thank you, Q. That was beautiful. This is so fun because it's all been in my head. What you guys like, like, what is this going to look like when we're all together? And I'm just like hearing Q's beautiful voice elaborating upon. I'm like, oh my God, I've been thinking about this for a couple months now. So I'm really excited that it's all here. All right, we're going on to Earth. Mal, you've got Taurus rising with Venus and Jupiter conjoining in Cancer in the 3rd house. This is my horoscope because I'm a Taurus rising, so no pressure, but you better do it well.
Ooh, nervous to be reading the teacher's chart. Yeah. Well, I'm like you, Adam. I'm like an English creative writing person, and I always think of the 3rd house as the Little Women house. And if you've ever explored that text, it's a text about 4 sisters and their trials and tribulations, and ultimately how they reach like forgiveness and understanding of each other. But there's a darkness of the story too, because the 3rd house being related to siblings and the people that we kind of shared our space with growing up, at least, I think there's like this shared nervous system that sometimes we can have with our siblings, and that creates conflicts later in life. I was even listening to a Taurus rising recently talk about how they've had this sibling rivalry with their sibling for a really long time, and yet that sibling is going through a really hard time at the moment, and they really have no choice, or maybe at least the choice is presenting itself for them to have some kind of resolution and really like a deep moment of forgiveness. And that's why forgiveness is one of my key words too for the Venus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. I think it can be, conversations and understanding and just coming at a conflict with a new approach that we didn't necessarily see before. If we think about Venus as the harmonizer, Venus wants to repair conflict, whereas Mars kind of wants to get into it, right? So I think some Taurus risings really will have that sibling energy coming through, and maybe finding points of forgiveness or understanding, thinking about the moments in Little Women when the little sister burns Joe's manuscript, and there's this there's this big moment there, and they have to sort things out. Now, the other thing that the 3rd house makes me think of is communication. Venus in Cancer, of course, makes me think about how we maybe communicate our needs or our values. Oh my gosh, can that be triggering to communicate what you need, especially if you're not used to that? And I think earlier we were saying how this conjunction overall might present opportunities to heal. So I'm thinking the Taurus risings may have to like really own up to something, saying something out loud Like, I need this from you, or I would really appreciate it if this could happen, or I want to hear what you need, but I also want to tell you what I'm thinking too. And there's this beautiful understanding that comes from that. And I think the Taurus risings will really benefit from maybe facing the fear of rocking the boat a little bit with their own needs and just kind of saying really what they are and speaking those out loud.
I love that, Mal. I'm thinking so much through the lens of the masterclass series that I've been teaching this year, where we've been exploring the Vedic philosophical meanings of the houses. And one of the ways that the third house is talked about is, coming out of that private sphere of the fourth, the primary motion of the sky, kind of bringing planets out of the fourth and up toward the eastern horizon. There's this sense of the third house being connected to that which naturally rises up out of us in terms of desires, impulses, actions rooted in desires and impulses, through things like expression, communication, emotionality. And then there's the sense of what do we desire and how does that inform what we go practice and develop as skills or abilities that require. It's like something we don't yet know or don't yet have that requires kind of effort and practice. And it's funny because as soon as Jupiter entered my third house as a Taurus rising 12 years ago, I was, what was that, 2013, wasn't it? Was it 2013 to 14? Yeah. That was the year in which I began voraciously studying Horary and Hellenistic. And so that natural sense of like, there's a new thing that I want, that I desire, that I'm interested in, and the direction that that may take in our lives right now in the third house comes to my mind as an additional, just kind of riffing off from what you were saying, Mal. And also, another interesting thing for me is as soon as Jupiter entered my third house, just in June here, the overwhelming desire to deepen my studies of music and guitar started just welling up in me. And I'm like, whoa, where's that coming from? Oh yeah, Jupiter just entered my third, and I'm feeling this desire to learn something and practice something. And so I wonder how that may appear as well. But what's really interesting is my sister, I've shared this on the channel a few times, when Mars was going through cancer, my sister had a stroke. And that she's doing really well now. Her recovery is really picking up. She had a long process of rehabilitation. And so it's really interesting to me that there's been a lot of healing in relationship with my sister. It's been that literal, with Jupiter coming into the third. There's been a lot of deeper conversations about life and mortality, and my sister's health is coming back. And it was kind of scary when Mars was in Cancer, So just to validate your angle on siblings, because I think that's been a big thing for me for sure. Anyone else want to add anything to Mal's wonderful Taurus rising horoscope here? Good. Okay. Let us move on then to Gemini. So for the air signs, Kelsey is our tour guide. What do you think about Venus and Jupiter getting together in the second house for Geminis?
Alrighty. So for Gemini risings, this conjunction coming through in your second house, it's going to relate to the themes of personal possessions, your finances, the things that bring you a sense of security is what I usually think about with the second house. Also, some of the Indian astrology makes me think of the family coming through the second house, especially with the Cancer sign giving that flavor of how important your emotional security is for you to attract in the resources that you need, and even actually to hold them and keep them and not spend them. Or I was thinking about, with the recent Mars retrograde, there may have been some stressors in this area, whether having to do with resources or income, or maybe the eclipses in your 10th and 4th are activating some things here about just feeling safe in the world to similar to the third, but go after what you need or to ask for what you need. And just how important it is for Gemini risings to have that second house feeling secure and safe and comfortable in the material world, so that you can kind of be that Piscean 10th house and transcend and be seen as expansive as you dream of. I think also basic signification could just be financial new beginnings that give you a sense of hope that feeling safe is possible. And it might be something that it's like maybe this particular time is offering opportunities with collaboration projects, since Venus and Jupiter tend to be relational. Jupiter happens to rule the 7th and the 10th. So I could see some really cool collaborative projects going on for Gemini risings. I could also see that just with Venus ruling the 5th, maybe these opportunities are like bringing you more joy. Maybe they're just more enjoyable. So it's easier to work and feel emotionally safe working because you're enjoying the work that you do. Yeah, I think in general, this could be a seeding point of a cycle that allows you to feel safer in the material world, and safer to maybe save your resources for something too. I want to also say, you can go a little overboard here with with Jupiter. I remember because I have a Jupiter ruled second house, so I remember this transit, and you can spend some money. So careful about what you spend your money on, because I think with Jupiter, sometimes it's like if you want something, like, you be careful what you want because you might get it. And also with the second house too, I wanted to mention this. Sometimes this can relate to anything that brings you security. So like things you consume as well, like how you take care of yourself. Are you, we talked about hydration, but in general, are you feeding yourself and fueling yourself so that you can show up in the material world feeling confident with all the things you have to offer and your resources?
I love that. Yeah, I think of like, be careful. You may be tempted to buy a $100,000 water filtration system for your house. Like it could be so literal. Like you're going to have to replace your washing machine or your dishwasher. Like sometimes the Venus Jupiter in the second comes up as an expense. This was a house that was called the house of income and expenditures. And so it's possible that there's something you're investing in or something that you have to invest in. That I just like to say that because we always like to think, well, Venus, Jupiter's in the second, I'm just going to be money, like cash raining from the sky, but sometimes Jupiter in the second will be, there's expenditures that come up. But I think more positively, and I really am more optimistic than anything for our Geminis out there, the combination of these two planets to me says emotional, like what we have that provides a sense of material security, and then more than that, comfort, ease, pleasure. That's important. But for Geminis, there's an emotional component to it. So I really like that Kelsey was emphasizing what's the connection to emotional things or relational things and how they contribute to a feeling of security. For example, a super mundane version of Venus Jupiter in the second can be your partner or your spouse is suddenly making more money. That contributes to a sense of well-being and safety. It's not all on you. It's cooperative. It's collaborative. There's other resources, other people that can play a role also emotionally in how you end up feeling safe. Being with the right people, earning money in company of the right people or with the right coworkers. These things can sometimes get clarified when, Venus, Jupiter get together in the second house like that. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Anyone want to add anything else for our Gemini risings?
I would just like to say that one thing that's coming to my mind, I think, is the word alleviation. I feel like this could be recently, I don't remember exactly what was going on, but there was some Jupiter transit with a trine in my natal chart. And there was a situation that could have been extremely inconvenient, extremely expensive, and like thrown a wrench in a lot of plans. But instead, it was like everything that could have eased the situation and made it better happened. So it's like, it's not always exactly, you're not always winning the lottery, but sometimes it's just softening and making more easeful what could have been a challenging or inconvenient situation, I think, in the second house there.
Right on. All right, let's roll forward to Cancer rising with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in your first house. You're going to be looking and feeling fantastic. No, I'm kidding. Emily's got our water signs. That is a real possibility. But Emily, you tell us. What do you think?
Yeah, that is one of the things I was going to say, actually. Like, oh, you're having a great hair day. You're feeling good in you're feeling good in your skin and in your clothes. The other thing that's possible is like people feel good around you, like you're exuding in Cancer this emotional safety and security, so that people want to be in your presence because you make them feel good. So these are all possibilities that I was thinking of. But a week or two ago, Adam, you were talking about with your Mercury retrograde horoscopes, the sacred image. And the image that has really been coming to me with this placement in the first house of self and body and appearance, I keep thinking about waking up and walking into the bathroom to splash some water in your face or brush your teeth and glancing up in the mirror and suddenly seeing your grandmother's eyes, like reflected back in the shape of your own. There's something about this because Cancer is, I often think of Cancers as like the genealogers. They're like the family record keepers of the zodiac. And there's so much about family and memory, I feel like, with Cancer, that there's something about having this moment of recognition that you are a part of something, that you're part of a lineage, you're part of a past that has a real humanity to it. And I know that not all of us have positive associations, right, with our family of origin. And no one ever wants to be told like, oh, you're turning into your mother. How lovely, but which my daughter actually said something recently. Oh, you just sounded like Nana. I'm like, oh God. But there's something, I don't mean it in that way, in like in a jarring, upsetting way of recognizing your family in yourself, but in a more, I think Q used the word forgiveness. I'm thinking forgiveness. I'm thinking healing. I'm thinking that there's this moment when we can be more accepting of our humanity and our flaws and maybe the flaws and faults of our past and our family, that allows for a like new relationship, Venus we're talking about, to ourselves, to our inner child, that is nurturing and nourishing and accepting and comforting and soothing, that we can just turn down that negative self-talk and turn up this like, let's just envelop our own little child within ourselves with kindness and sweetness. So I think that's really on offer here. I think that, the disclaimer is there's the too muchness quality. So you might be a little over self-indulgent, over self-soothing. There's a possibility for, a little bit of ego inflation here, or feeling superior about how you feel about a thing, babying your feelings a little much. But on the whole, it just feels, I think the key phrase I keep thinking of is heightened sense of well-being is on offer here for our Cancer risings.
I love that. I'm thinking a lot about my wife, Ashley, who many people have met on the channel before. She's comes and talks about plants and herbs, and she's Cancer rising. Mars going through Cancer in her first house coincided with pneumonia. I mean, she had a really tough go of it with just a lot of it was picking up stuff from the kids, and then being a mom, she's sleeping with them while they're sick, and then she gets sick, or you know what I mean? It's like that whole like spin cycle of kids building their immune systems and moms being like the casualty. So she was dealing with that a lot while Mars was going through Cancer. As soon as Jupiter entered Cancer, she started getting a lot of downloads about how going between summer and the next school year, some things she's going to do. She's started going to see an acupuncturist again. She hadn't for some years. Started like kind of getting clear on what her self-care needed to look like to better buffer herself against the ebbs and flows of being a mom. And I just thought, that is so Jupiter in Cancer following Mars's retrograde in the first house. I just wonder, what kind of healing insights, what kind of resources are you becoming so clear about right now, given maybe what you went through as a Cancer rising with Mars there for a substantial portion of the end of 24, the first part of 25? What resources are you realizing or accessing? What well are you pulling things up from right now as a result of the process you went through? So that comes to my mind. But anyone else want to add anything about Cancer rising? It's a pretty powerful placement here.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit just as a Cancer rising. The last time I was going through this transit, Jupiter through the first house, I had just graduated high school and I was heading into college. So, you know, the spark notes is like, I hated high school, like to the point where I was like, Mom, please let me homeschool myself. I don't want to go. It was such like a good like water sign, like, don't make me go out in public. So the graduation from not having to do high school anymore to coming into a college environment, I went to like a small liberal arts college. I absolutely started to thrive for really like the first time in my life, because the environmental factors of having that small college feel, being able to meet a lot of new people. I formed some really close relationships with different professors that really nourished me. I see that as like a first house transit because, yes, the first house is about your body and yourself and the expression of the self, but things that happen in the first house affect the whole chart. And that year was a massive turning point for me in the way I was showing up in the world. And I think it was like the first year of my life I really got to find out who I was. So I think a lot of the Cancer risings might be going through this moment again. It's time to figure out who I am again, you know, after a darker, more shadowy experience.
Love that. Let's see here. All right. Thank you guys. That was wonderful. Let's move. Q, you're going to take us into the 12th
Yes.
house. You ready?
Ooh, spooky, spooky. Let's get into it. Yes. Not so bad, actually, for Leo risings. I think that overall, this will feel a little uncomfortable for you because it's not like the normal stage you're used to kind of operating on. It's more backstage workings and leaning more into the invisible realms, I guess, of your psyche, of your emotional realm, your spirituality, your intuitive relationship to self is being highlighted right now. I think that there's this ability that Cancer or Jupiter in Cancer meeting with Venus here is affording you this moment to kind of lean into what it feels like to be loved unconditionally without having to show up in any particular type of way. Leo risings can kind of fall to the pressure of presenting well and consistently presenting well and showing up in this spotlight sort of way. Whereas like Jupiter and Cancer in this 12th house realm, it's asking for you to kind of pull back and could possibly be providing you this like moment of stillness and detachment from the rest of the world. It could be looking at how do we fortify and have your inner sanctuary function well for you, and whatever spiritual practices or rituals that bring you back to your truest self. How can we just build and nourish that relationship that you have with self that will inevitably fall and like pour into that first house and help you show up as your most authentic, fullest, most confirmed, emotionally confirmed self. I think that with Mercury being in retrograde in this house, your first house for you, there's going to be a lot of like reflection that you would have been going through and answers that you've been seeking around the self, that this transit now following that retrograde is providing you this moment of like healing through the realizations that you may have come to that weren't so comfy feeling. Um, Questions that came up that were painful to sit within self, possibly, as far as like recognizing how you may have not been moving or communicating or expressing, right? Sharing information, sharing yourself. Mercury is just like maybe you haven't been doing that from like an authentic place of the heart. And Cancer, Venus, and Jupiter right now is like, well, let's get down to the basics. Let's do some self unraveling, because the 12th house can self unravel, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that like is self destructive only, that you're like spiraling out of control. It could just be that we're like taking away the layers that we've built in order to perform a certain type of way, in order to receive love and or give love in a performative type of way. This could be an opportunity where we're like peeling all of that back and sitting with that inner child, sitting with like all the heavy thoughts that you've probably pushed into the back of the backstage. And you're like, that never sees the audience. The audience will never applaud that side of me. But what if they could? What if you gave them access to that? What if you gave yourself access to that first, right? So I think that, again, this might be one of those more painful, beautiful, bittersweet, beautiful moments, transits for Leo risings, because it's not always going to be pretty. I think what we unearth in the womb of our like emotions and subconscious realm, but it's a part of you, a part of the essence of how you're moving actually. So again, I think that there's like this very like, I don't know, efficiency is spiritual, and especially when it's like grounded in compassion. So self-compassion may be something that I remind Leos to lean into during this time as they work with this transit, work with these energies. Clearing space, both physical and emotional, could be really, really helpful for them to kind of like just sit with the feelings that come up when they feel like they are asked to show up and provide, show up and shine, perform in any type of way. How are you actually feeling through those experiences? And are they, are they like sufficing you? Like, are they actually providing you nourishment to show up in the most authentic way that you would like to? I have, yeah, cry it out. I think that that's one of the notes that I have here. I'm like, they may be crying. Y'all may cry a little bit, and that's okay. I think that like the 12th house in that energy is just like, yeah, crying can be medicinal. We're playing with that 12th house, 6th house axis. So like, again, spiritual ritual will be really confirming within yourself this like knowing of what spiritually nourishes you, fuels you, um, gives you self insight in the best, most authentic way. I think that that's something I like my Leo rising friends. I'm always like, yeah, but like you show up for your family all the time. You show up for your friends all the time. But baby, like, when was the last time you showed up for you? Like, how do you actually feel about this situation? Um, have you sat down for a little bit? Like, you're creating something, you're showing up, you're doing the job, but I think that there's something emotionally that you ignore and bypass when the hard things come up, when something ugly pops up. It's easy for them to kind of, but like, look at what I did over here, but look at like how great I am in this way. No, baby, like let's sit with what is over here though, and like I can provide you comfort. So I think that leaning into people, spaces, activities that are soft with you, that allow you to kind of detox your more performative self, so that the truest version of your inner child, your just like natural way of being can come forward. So allow the undoing to happen. I think that Venus and Jupiter here is providing a very safe, like padded room for you to just like unravel all those layers of self and kind of maybe like run up against the wall if you need to and just like bang your head a little bit. But like you're in the soft pillowed room. Okay. So like it's okay. The rec room, like they have those rec rooms. It's like, hey, sometimes crying in the healing process is messy and ugly. And again, it's happening backstage. And so it's like Leo's like, y'all never gonna see me break down like that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is the time to take that moment to yourself. So yeah, and allowing people who exhibit Cancerian energies to soften with you, I think will be really, really great, leaning into those relational bonds where people allow you, spaces allow you to feel that and experience it.
Thank you, Q. Yeah, that was amazing. I'll just add one quick thing, which is that it's a moksha house. So liberation. What does a liberation look like? Sometimes it's a good cry. Sometimes it's a good hug. So it doesn't have to necessarily be. I mean, you could see Venus, Jupiter in the 12th being like an exploration of some kind of overindulgent desires that are problematic. I could literally see that being someone being like, I drink too much. But I probably just as readily see it as like, that's a hug I needed, and then I cry and I feel a little bit better. So thinking about emotional release and healing, I think is a really good way to go. Just for the sake of time, I think we'll just move on to the next one and we'll keep rolling. Let's go to Virgo and we'll do, sorry, can you guys see Virgo on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Mal.
Oh, awesome. Well, I was thinking Virgo rising, this conjunction will actually happen in your 11th house of groups and networks. So I was thinking about circumstances or experiences we might have with some kind of group catharsis, or this experience of maybe feeling like we're alone in a certain realm of our suffering or shame, and then actually being able to share it with someone and them saying, oh, me too, or, oh, I understand that. Like, we've all had those experiences where we're like, oh my God, like I'm not alone in my suffering. And that in itself is healing. Now, another image that kind of comes to mind, if you've ever been an athlete or even been a fan of sports, have you ever watched your team win the championship game or watched a team win a championship game? What happens? Well, the whole team just starts sobbing because there's this big lead up of working so hard the whole season to get to this championship game. But anything can happen in the championship. The team that is slated to win could lose by a landslide. You just don't know. There's an element of luck that has to be on your side, to win that championship game. Luckily, Jupiter is the planet of luck, right? So there's something like me and the group have been working on something for a long time. And now we're almost getting ready to release the project. And the release of the project is emotional in nature. And it's happy tears, but it's also emotional with how much grit and gumption, you might have put into something with the group. Another example that comes to mind is a Virgo rising deciding, in order to reach a new level of healing, I actually have to do this in a group. So attending their first Al-Anon meeting or signing up for group therapy. There's something like, I can't heal this in isolation. I need to know that someone else has gone through what I've gone through. And on a personal level, I mean, individual therapy sure is great and amazing, but I think I've actually had my deepest transformations in group settings, watching other people have those really raw moments of vulnerability and that awakening something in me. So don't be afraid, Virgo rising, to experiment with putting yourself into those kind of situations where the group is actually to your benefit. And you might have to lay down the sword of, I got to do it all myself. That might be the shadow side that's coming up for you during this time.
Mal, I love that. That was so wonderful. As a Minnesotan who doesn't often get to watch the men's sports teams do well, I'm very excited at the potential that the Minnesota women's basketball team this year, who's doing really, really well, may end up in the championship. And then I can say that I saw a championship because I've become a lot more interested in women's basketball in the past year. And I wasn't previously. So I'm excited to hopefully take my daughters to some games. And I was looking at this in August and going, oh, that'd be fun to take them to the Minnesota Women's Lynx team. And so anyway, but on a side, here's what's interesting. My daughter, Virgo rising, she's going to be with my wife and a group of women and girls at a mommy-daughter weekend that they're having. Well, and that wasn't planned. They just happened to do it, of course, right? But here's the other thing. For years in a row, she's been hopeful that a certain grouping of her friends will be put together in the same homeroom in school. And the list of who she will be with in her homeroom as a Virgo rising comes out as this conjunction is coming together. And she said, do you think I'll get it? And I looked at her chart and I saw this and I go, I think at least a few of you and your good besties are going to be together. At least one. You're going to, because how could that show up in the 11th and not give her a little bit of a happy result with who she's in her homeroom with, you know? So anyway, that's the same transit in my 9-year-old daughter's chart that could, you know, so it's really funny to see how some of that shows up. But anyway, that's my piece. Anyone else want to jump in on the Virgo risings here? Yeah. Okay. Let's move along. We'll go to Libra.
All right. So for Libra rising, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction's happening in your 10th house. This makes me think about just how Jupiter often gives us opportunities, but mainly opportunities to learn. And sometimes we maybe just focus on the fact that it's an opportunity, but I think this will be a really great learning year for Libra risings to understand maybe how they want to show up in the public arena, and what kind of role they want to play as those things are changing this year. I was thinking also about understanding like boundaries at work, just with a Cancer ruled 10th house, you know, it's sensitive up there. And so maybe there's some things that you're learning about your own sense of comfort and safety in your vision for your career. Maybe you're currently in a career or you're building one or you're starting over. No matter what phase you're at, this could be a time where whatever it is you're doing in the world, if it's a career or not, you're rethinking how you want to be seen, because with that Cancerian 10th house, you're a caregiver and you're a giver. You're someone who has the Pisces zodiac sign occupying your 6th house as well. And I'm thinking about how Venus is your chart ruler, and it was with Saturn earlier this year, and now it's with Jupiter at the top. So I'm thinking about how maybe work has been laborious or a challenge to figure out like what direction you feel comfortable going in, or maybe learning more about the value of your achievements and feeling that sense of pride and success because you've worked so hard, maybe since earlier this year. This could also be separate from career, because not everybody maybe is a working person, but someone maybe could relate to this in terms of how their family is changing. Not to bring in other transits, but Pluto is in your 5th house. So I was thinking about motherhood. I mean, only going to apply to some people. Or just in general, focusing on how you're changing things at home, and how that's shifting your role at work and the boundaries that you're adjusting as you learn more about your own sense of security, operating publicly. And I think a lot about how the 10th and the 1st house signs often interact. And, we always say, oh, Libras are, they're very careful. They don't want to offend, or, they want to make sure everyone's comfortable. And that's because you do have that 10th house Cancerian sign. So maybe this is also about realizing Cancer has that soft inside, but it also has the shell, So having boundaries is so important. And then it will allow you to do the best work that you can when you develop those systems. And it'll be intuitive and specific to each Libra rising.
I love that. I can't help but think of the fact that I know a Libra rising in my personal life, a friend who is whose job is dependent on grants. And I just was thinking just recently very positively for them. I didn't like say, oh, it's going to happen. But I said, you know, when the grant funding thing comes up at the end of the closer to the end of the year, they're going to be finding out about some of that process in August. I love this transit for just being like, here's a resource, here's a form of support. You know, sometimes if you're the owner of a small business, you suddenly have a little extra income, you can hire a little extra help. I wonder just what resources come flowing in to say, here's some more support for your work in the world. Or yeah, even like, you know, if you are asking about leadership in the workplace, I love this as some kind of like almost like a spirit of agape in a workplace, which is not always, a lot of people don't have that. So for Libras who value peace and diplomacy, I could see this as supporting healthy work relationship dynamics. And if that's needed, then what a blessing, right? If that's something that's been lacking, then could there be some shifts in relational dynamics in the workplace that just things just flow a little bit easier? Could there be some healing, you know? So I also love this. I'm going to be like, I'm just going to use a little dirty language, but I love this as like boss bitch energy, like just a strong feminine, almost like when matriarchs led the world, you know, you know what I mean? Like the ancient goddess as leader of tribe and community, the feminine as elder, the grandmother as leader of the medicine people. Like what I feel like there is strong feminine leadership and wisdom here that can be executive, but can also lead from that space of relational sensitivity. We don't even necessarily have to call that, that doesn't have to be a literal gender, obviously, but just the energy of the feminine compassion, sensitivity leading the way, if that shows up in whatever kind of body or orientation.
Yeah, I was actually thinking as you're speaking how that relates to like maybe the eighth house topics of how Libra risings, their chart rulers Venus rules the first and the eighth. And maybe this transit has a lot to do with vulnerability and being comfortable bringing some of that into your public arena and just, yeah, being seen for the vulnerable human that you are.
I love that. Anyone want to jump in on Libra rising? Good. Hey, let's quickly, just for fun, let's say our rising signs, because I think that would be fun. I'm a Taurus rising. Kelsey?
I'm a Scorpio rising.
I'm a Cancer rising.
Pisces.
Sagittarius.
I love it. Like, and Q, you have some strong water in your chart, though. Scorpio, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I got at least 4 placements in Scorpio.
That was like
12th house.
I just have to mention, since we're talking about Jupiter, right? Because we had that new moon with the Jupiter Cazimi. Everyone remember that back in, it was June, wasn't it? Yeah, it was June. And that was present when we were going through the auditions. And what I found so amazing was that landed on my natal Mercury in the 3rd house, that Cazimi did. And for a podcaster making selections without any knowledge of any of your charts, that this watery panel was assembled. I mean, Q's got some fire. Thank God we're just melting into a puddle. She brings it, you know, so that's good. But she's got Scorpio too, so we're set. You know, we got so much water and earth. And anyway, and I'm a Cancer, so I just thought it was interesting. There's so much water that came through, and it was around the Jupiter new moon with the Cazimi and all that. So anyway, that's just a fascinating aside that I felt like I wanted to mention. Let's roll on. We'll go to Scorpio next. And Emily, you're going to tell us about this conjunction in the 9th.
Yes. So for this, I think I'll just actually tell a personal story about a Scorpio rising in my life that shortly after Jupiter moved into Cancer in June, they took a trip abroad to a country that they had not been to for over a decade. but where they had spent a lot of time in their 20s when they were kind of becoming an adult, and where they spent a lot of time with a specific family that kind of became a second family to them. And this trip was this like nostalgic and sentimental re-infusion of how formative this family and these experiences were in the shaping of a lot of their kind of guiding life principles, which I think of as very much a ninth house topic, those life principles, those philosophies that we, live our life by. And so I feel like, that was just Jupiter, and here we have Venus too, but I feel like this story exemplifies what could be on offer for some of our Scorpio risings, is like this new or deepening relationship to our belief systems, whatever they may be, our guiding life principles, our ideologies, that feels emotionally bonded and connected, that we feel attached to our systems of belief. This could also look like meeting a person or deepening a relationship with a person that you met in, a religious setting, an educational setting, through a political ideation, or from abroad, or when you were abroad, any of those kinds of things. But it feels like a deepening or a new relationship to those formative experiences and beliefs or people that you share these values with, that feels buoying and emotionally connected and bonded. And I think therein lies a little bit of the caution as well, is that, Cancer can sometimes, because it wants to protect family so much, it can sometimes be a little insular. And there might be the tendency with this to get a little righteous about what your belief systems are because you feel so emotionally bonded to them, that there could be a bit of a superiority complex that comes in, or a tendency to other those who do not share your same belief systems. So just watch for that there might be a tendency towards kind of righteous thinking about what you believe. But on the whole, it feels like a nourishing and emotionally, like, I just keep thinking that word enveloping, or like, it almost feels like there's like amniotic fluid that's coming in around your systems of belief, that's just invigorating, or starting something new, seeding something new within that feels safe and nurtured, that you can nurture. I'm hoping for a lot of our Scorpio risings that they feel that. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think when I think about the natural Dharma, these are Dharma houses, speaking to that Indian philosophical background, the first, the ninth, the fifth. When I think of the first, I think for Scorpio risings, I think about some of those fierce, protective, loyal, emotionally deep and substantive qualities that are so much the Dharma of a Scorpio rising. Without this, it's not you. And authenticity and depth and sincerity and a kind of no bullshit approach to life. That's consistently been my experience of all my Scorpio rising, friends and people in my life. But it's important that the understanding of reality for such an individual be soft, so that the fierceness is not without its softness, And so I'm just wondering what's happening right now that can be substantive, that can feel authentic and real. So it's not like rainbow, it's not rainbow farts. You know what I mean? It's not poly positive, but it's something genuinely softening that you can carry alongside of the natural intensity of your selfhood. It's like you're a warrior, that phoenix in, that transformative impulse of Scorpio. It can't be washed away by things that are too nice. It's like trying to take the instinct out of we've got 2 mastiffs, you can't take the guard dog out of a mastiff. You just can't. That's who they are. But what does it look like to, I'm thinking of our dogs, and if you socialize them in the right way, they're the sweetest dogs ever. And they're not overly reactive. and they're not overly defensive, but they still have that instinct. I'm thinking right now about what's the sweetening, softening touch that perfectly accompanies the intensity of your character.
Yeah, beautiful.
Anyone want to add anything here for Scorpio?
Well, I I definitely consider me buoyed by this group, and I'm feeling really nurtured and safe to give horoscopes because of I was born under Mars retrograde in Cancer, so this particular Jupiter transit is really feeling great comparatively. But I think, yeah, the sensitivity around a Scorpio rising's beliefs, I think this year you could do a lot of growth, and I'm excited to do this myself through working with you guys. And yeah, hearing a lot of different perspectives. Even when I thought about this, I just thought about how much I'm going to learn and how aligned that is with Jupiter in the ninth. And Venus coming in the beginning could be about um, being receptive to it and just not so martial.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I got to meet Emily and Kelsey at NORWAC. And we were sitting out on the grass, a bunch of us talking one day, and Kelsey was talking about her work as a therapist and so on and so forth. And so it was really, for me, it was really cool to see the arc between some of the personal. I got to know some of these people, and then I got to see their auditions, and it was, it's like it was so interesting because none of that was planned, but that's how, for me, that was how I could see the orchestration of Jupiter sitting right on my Mercury in the third house, and getting to meet these people and hear their stories and see something of their lives, and then hear their astrological talent and all of it being connected. I think it's also, for me too, it's going to be a really meaningful year, and I'm just really excited about it. So I'm glad that it's landing in a house that, it's like your horoscope is this.
Exactly.
That's super cool.
And I will say, I just want to mention, just because I'm sensitive to it, for anyone listening, I haven't completed school, so I'm technically not a therapist, but I do counseling work and work one-on-one with clients in a mental health setting. So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's helpful. Yeah, I do appreciate that. There's a lot of crossover between working with clients as an astrologer and counseling and therapy, but they are different. They are unique. So
just in case anyone's listening and thought of that, I just wanted to mention it.
Yeah. See, there is the substantive authenticity of Scorpio right there on display. All right, Q, you're going to fire us up now. This is your rising, so you're going to read for yourself. So you tell us.
Yes, right. Oh goodness, for all my Sages out there, we're gonna be okay. I think that with the eighth house, it gets a little scary, a little too quickly for us, because Sagittarius nature is to be free, to be wild, the wild horse vibe of it all. And with Venus and Jupiter being in your eighth house in this Cancerian energy, Jupiter is like, how can we make mutual exchange functional for you that's rooted in, again, that emotional attunement, the intimacy that the eighth house provides, and also that just like submersion into, like, because that's where the sun is setting. So it's just like there's this um, submitting to, right, that Sagittarius we have to engage in with the other, that karmic energy coming off the seventh house of the contracts, the relationships that we've made, this house of shared resources is important for us to state what we need, I think, and get comfortable with stating what we need. I think that for Sagittarius risings, this transit can really highlight how either you've been in that Cancerian shell of protecting yourself just so that you're not allowing yourself to really commit to what it feels like to be emotionally safe with others, and for that to be mutually beneficial for yourself and them, this opportunity could be bringing people into your life or highlighting relationships in your life where you can be more safe and feel more comforted and nurtured by and receiving things out of this relationship that you have with these other people that you have with yourself as well. Because I think there's that eighth and second house axis that you kind of have to be aware of, where it's just like the roots of this like reprogramming within your relationship to others starts with your own value system. So really making sure that you're balancing, the sharing of self intimately, but being grounded in like, okay, I've done the work with these other people to feel safe with them. The Capricornian, like, okay, it's a mountain to feel like completely understood, to be completely felt by other people. I tell people all the time, I've been in my relationship for 10 years with my partner, and people will ask like, how have you lasted a decade? Like, that's so crazy. And I'm like, well, it took work. Like, we went in with an ideal of us staying together and what type of relationship we wanted, but we knew we couldn't just like tackle that in one leap. We had to take it step by step and realize, okay, well, what are our needs? What are our communication styles, our love languages? How do we feel supported? How do we feel respected? And take that day by day. Each conversation that needs to be had, we're showing up and being present for it. If you can instill that within yourself, you know that you're doing the things you need to do, whether that be with a job, a hobby, whatever the other is that you find yourself contractually, karmically in relationship with in that eighth house, where you're being resourced by it as well. If you can feel like you've done the Capricornian steps and done the work, and put in the time, you've respected Saturn, then you could feel so much more safe and like you have more sovereignty over the relationships you've made, the way that you're showing up in these relationships to other people, and what you're asking for in return as well in the eighth house. You'll feel so much more emotionally secure, I think, rising to the occasion to be committed to something or someone that you have done the work, and making sure that this is the right thing to be connected to and in relationship with. Venus is really making this a safer, more softer feeling, not so like, hey, either you're in or you're out, commit to this. Kind of like what Kelsey was saying earlier when it was like more so Saturn was at play. With Venus here, this is like more desire led. You want to feel safer in your relationships to other. You actually desire to be mutually received well and safe and like home. You're seeking home in these other relationships. So I think it's really a good time for Sagittarius to just take a moment, breathe through it. It's going to be a little scary, like this whole situation here for me as I reflect on it. I'm a very private person, like I said, Scorpio 12th house placements. And this, just being a part of this with Adam and you ladies it's great. Like is really pushing me out of my comfort zone. It's something that like I literally did a card pull and I wrote some notes during that full moon actually. And I literally wrote down that I want to be around people who teach me and I want to feel supported, but I also want to share all the things that I'm learning with the communities around me. And then I applied and ended up like hearing back from Adam when Jupiter was conjunct my natal Venus in the eighth house. So I live with this like
Yeah.
Venus, Cancer, eighth house energy. And I've always been afraid of love. I always have. So like, it's just like, I get how scary this could feel to be like, oh, wow, all this opportunity is showing up for me to be deeply in community, deeply in relationship with other people. And I can really come up from this. Like I can really benefit from this. And other people can benefit deeply if I step into this and allow myself to merge while also not losing myself. So Sagittarius, you will not lose yourself if you merge into these things that are calling you to rest into them. I think when we're thinking about just like the eighth house being that setting place for the sun. So yeah, that's some thoughts that I've had with
Thanks.
Sagittarius.
Thank you, Q. Yeah, that was awesome. I'll just add one quick thing and we'll keep moving on, which is that, again, just coming out of an eighth house perfection year, one of the things that during this year, I wrote and gave a talk on the 8th house that was really informed by my evolving understanding of it through this 8th house perfection year and through the loss of 2 mentors, Jeffrey Cornelius, who was a really important mentor in my life, and Ken Jordan, who was the publisher of Reality Sandwich. And these people gave me incredible opportunities for growth through basically gifts. Like Jeffrey, another mentor named Chris Odell, supported him coming to the United States, paid for his way over to give classes. We facilitated him giving classes. We didn't really make any money from it. It went to him, and he was gifted the flight over here. But then the impact he had on me shaped the rest of my career. Ken Jordan gave me this platform to work with, and it launched Nightlight. In their death, there was this sense, not of obligation in a punitive or fear-based sense. I owe them something. Although the 8th house can go in that direction, but I have a Jupiter-ruled 8th house. So it was like, let's give back. What was I given? Now how can I give it back? So the retreat that we're going to be hosting, the only retreat I've ever led, was with Jeffrey Cornelius. The retreat we're leading next year will be astrology and divination, which is what he taught on. So now I'm giving a retreat that was in line with what he gave. I'm offering this platform in line with what I was given. That reciprocity right now in the 8th house, is it time to generously pour out back in the direction of people and things that were given? Or is it a time to receive and just love it? There'll be a time where you can pay it forward, but I think there's a gift and a blessing to either be given or to be received, or a little bit of both for Sagittarius coming up. And that's really exciting. Anyone want to add anything before we move on to Capricorn? Okay. Oh, Mal, you got something?
Oh, no, I'm prepping
You're
for
ready.
Capricorn.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
Well, we have this meeting of the benefics in the 7th house. Everyone's starry-eyed who's Capricorn rising, thinking about love. And so tell us what you think, Mal.
Yeah, well, I think we perfectly kind of set up the 7th house because we're already in the realms of partnership with the 8th house forecast for the Sag risings. Now, Cap rising, it's funny. I have a friend who I've been observing, and I see this transit in her chart so clearly because her partner has been struggling for a long time to leave a job that they just really didn't like, was bringing them down. And recently, they actually made the career change. They kind of mustered up the courage, and it was just the right time for them to make this career change. And it's going really well for her partner. Yet my friend, I saw her kind of have a little bit of a freak out with the career change her partner was having, because it was like, holy shit, my partner is growing in this exponential way. What does that mean for me? And I think this goes back to the 1st house, 7th house axis. I like to think about the mirror archetype with this axis. Like something happening in the 7th house is going to affect how we're seeing ourselves, and something happening in the 1st house is going to affect how we are relating to others. So in my friend's partner's growth, now she's doing some serious reflection about how she wants to grow. And of course, there are some financial questions involved in the situation, which is Venus. Like, how do we reorganize our finances to make all of these career changes possible? But at the same time, I think there's also a new vision for the partnership. Like, think about it. Like, the whole time, this partnership has had, that job the partner didn't really like. That was like a third party almost in the relationship. And now that third party has been released, there's like a real reconnection I think going on. And just generally, I could see maybe a Capricorn rising renewing their vows with a spouse that they've had a lot of challenges with throughout the years. And now it's the time to forgive and renew. I could also see a Capricorn rising maybe newly single and really reorienting around what they are looking for and maybe how they're approaching the search for love, if you will. And of course, the seventh house can have to do with platonic partnerships and business partnerships and everything like that. But it is Venus, it is Venus in Cancer. I want to, and the Pisces in me is kind of romanticizing this just a little bit for the Cap risings. But I think it's a really good time to sit down and reevaluate what you're bringing to the realm of partnership, what you have to give, just as much as what you are receiving. And this follows a little bit of the theme of the eighth house report as well.
Love that. I'm going to ask for additional feedback from some of you rather than talking this time. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I could speak on it if no one else wants to, but I remember when Jupiter passed through my seventh, and I just met a lot of people that helped me grow, and some of the growth was hard, and some of the growth was beautiful. And yeah, especially I remember the Jupiter Venus conjunction, because that was actually the last time it happened, was in Taurus, I believe. And yeah, some new relationships came into my life that maybe not all of them stayed in my life, and some of them were just passing through. But it's kind of like, now that this conjunction's happening again, I'm almost seeing that cycle in its completion. And I did go back and look at all the squares and the sextiles and the oppositions, and oh my goodness, you guys, you got to do this, because you'll see some people that you've met and that you've been greatly impacted by through the interactions of the cycle, or the synodic cycle of the two planets. So I wanted to bring that up in terms of, like, let's say there's no one in your life right now and you're like, come on, like, this is my Jupiter transit. Just know that it's a cycle, and this is maybe the beginning of that.
Totally, Kelsey. I remember also having similar experiences when Jupiter was transiting my seventh house, meeting a lot of new people, actually through the realm of clients, because Jupiter was transiting my seventh house the first year I kind of opened my business for astrology and tarot readings. But that first year of being in business, you don't quite have your energy established enough to only attract people you enjoy working with. So then you have these readings that really challenge you and trigger you, and so I totally relate to the whole meeting a ton of new people, but some of those people are going to be challenges as well.
I'll just say really quickly, I feel like Jupiter in Gemini in your sixth house for Caps was probably I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty Jupiterian person. So ungrounding. It was such a chaotic energy, and traveling through the sixth house, it was probably, for a lot of Capricorn risings, a little bit hard to feel grounded. Like, there was effort and self-sacrifice in all sorts of areas, and none of it was really feeling like it was getting any fruition, or like you were getting any affirmations from it. And so I wonder if for some Capricorn risings, after that year of Jupiter in detriment in your sixth house of kind of like hardship and toil, if moving it into the seventh and then joining with Venus, if there's just like a coalescing around being able to relate with other people in a new way, after the kind of personal, ungrounded chaos of going through a year of Jupiter in Gemini in your sixth.
Yeah. I love the fact that you were talking about people that, or Kelsey was talking about people that may teach you something. When Jupiter was in Scorpio in my seventh, Taurus rising, so when that transit happened in my seventh, I met the guru that I would study with and then take initiation from, still someone that I deeply love and respect. I did not leave on bad terms with him or with my religious tradition. That guru, that teacher, was deeply important for my ongoing personal evolution, even though I'm no longer like a disciple, so to speak, in that lineage. But Jupiter in the seventh was so literally a relationship with a teacher. And I never would have thought that, because you live through enough experiences, you start going, oh, Jupiter in the seventh doesn't have to be love. It could be a really important Jupiterian figure that I'm having an interpersonal connection with. There's pretty intimate relationships that we form with coaches, mentors, etc. So that's a possibility to keep in mind. Let's roll on to Aquarius, and we'll keep this rolling with Venus and Jupiter joining in the sixth.
All right. So for Aquarius risings, this is happening in the sixth house, which is the place of routines, your health. I like to think of this place as commitments and responsibilities and the things that we have to take care of. All the things you take care of, from your body to your pets to all the appointments and the upkeep of your career, as it does trine the 10th and the 2nd. I think about how they're all connected and how important the sixth house is if we want to be successful and if we want to feel secure. So I was thinking about, for Aquarians, maybe having some lessons coming through right now from Jupiter, and being more receptive to them with Venus coming in, about which systems and structures need to be reshaped to maybe hold the container, or kind of like the repotting that you were talking about, Adam, with like maybe your work life is getting more abundant and you have to make the container a little bit bigger. Maybe you're hiring people, maybe you're asking for help or outsourcing in a way. There could also be, just opportunities to, again, with similar as this was going on in the 10th for Libra risings, you could be setting better boundaries with the people you work with, so that you can focus more on your own health. Because I do think that they're just so interrelated, especially with Cancer ruling the sixth. It's such an intuitive relationship with your body and your mind, and how you can show up to give and provide and sacrifice. And I think that Aquarians are learning about how important it is to feel nourished here so that you can give and provide that healing. You could also be someone who works in healing professions, or someone who helps provide containers for others. And maybe you're conceptualizing a new way to do it. And yeah, I'm thinking about how your emotional and mental health and physical health is all so important, for you to be able to show up and do the work that you want to do. This could also be, I like to remember Jupiter. I'm born at night, okay? So sometimes Jupiter, will just make things really big. So if there's anything going on with your health, instead of being worried about Jupiter, don't be. Be very pleased. Jupiter's here to help you figure out what's going on. So go seek some help. Venus is the ruler of your ninth, so you could find some helpful advisors or people to help you out with any health issues you're going through. Or you could do some alternative healing. That's something I see a lot with the ninth and sixth interplaying. And I'm feeling like this is coming up with Aquarian people in my life. I feel like you need to be by water. Everyone should, I think, with with Jupiter and Cancer, but maybe there's something about it being healing for you. Maybe you need to like jump in the ocean or something.
I love that, Kelsey. Jump in the yeah. It's funny because I'm thinking of my 6-year-old who's about to turn 7, Aquarius rising, and in about this time in August, for her birthday, she's been begging us for a bunny. She wants a pet rabbit, and so we're going to take her through a foster experience so that she can really see what it requires. And then if it's set up so that you can foster, fail, and then adopt, right?
I've
But
been
it's
there.
yeah, exactly. But this will be a process for her of caretaking an animal, and we're really putting it on her. We're like, if you want this, then this is what you have to do, and we're going to go through an adoption process. So she's going to be figuring out the work required to nurture a living being, a pet, right? Isn't that just perfect for a little Aquarius rise? I
That
just love
is
that.
so perfect. And I love how Aquarians, ruled by Saturn, they tend to see things from a very zoomed out perspective. So it'll be cool for her to be right in the details and be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yep. The
Um,
little new hay every day, poops to clean,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyway, I just had to say that
Yeah.
I think that there's something very embodying of exactly as you were just saying about the potential for, the difference between air and water. There's an ideal in the sky. What does it feel like when it comes into the body? And while that can be, there's a potential with the 1st and the 6th because they don't see each other to be like almost like dissociated. But I think this benefic conjunction suggests the possibility for something to become really embodied.
Mhm.
And maybe that's very healing, or maybe the opportunity for embodiment through seeking out, like you said, good avenues of self-care. So I love that.
Yeah. And I also think that with Cancer being on the 6th, and sometimes the 6th house for me has shown up as like living situation rental stuff.
Mm.
So I was thinking about that too because of just having Jupiter and Venus there. Maybe you're thinking about what home would be the most nourishing for you to do the work you want to do, to feel the best, to just feel nourished to your mind, body.
Mhm. Yeah, tenants in the 6th house too. If you're renting out a space or you're deciding you're going to share or go in on a space with roommates, yeah, I could see interesting things coming up there. Will anyone else want to add anything to Aquarius before we move on? All right, let's go last but not least to Pisces.
Pisces. So Venus and Jupiter are coming together in your 5th house. So, full disclosure, as already stated, this is me. I'm a Pisces rising. So hopefully, and I'm pretty Jupiterian, so hopefully I don't veer too much towards the wishful thinking. Definitely could do that, over promise and under deliver here. But I mean, on paper, does it get much more benefic than this? It's like, these are your 2 ruling planets, Jupiter by domicile, Venus by exaltation. In Venus's house of her joy, in the house of good fortune, Jupiter is exalted. Even Venus has dignity by triplicity here, right? So it's kind of like, la. This is like, there used to be the Museum of Modern Art in Santa Barbara, which is near where I live, used to have a dream home raffle. And this is like the image I'm getting, like for some Pisces risings out there, maybe if you're in a Jupiter ruled perfection year and it's angular and dignified, something like that, you might win the dream home, right? This is the thing that it's possible to win the lottery, right?
Yeah.
But for most people, of course, it's not going to look like that. It's going to be much simpler. But I feel like it's going to be, a sweet romantic date night. And maybe you're having a glass of wine that's from your anniversary year or something. Or you're having a kind of sentimental family board game or playing poker. We used to play poker with M&Ms as our money, like when I was a kid. So I'm seeing that like, you're eating your winnings sometimes,
Yeah.
or like, my mom used to make this dessert of bananas in just milk and brown sugar. Sliced bananas with milk and brown sugar, like wholesome, sweet, family desserts, or like going to the farmer's market if you're lucky enough to live near one with a group of friends and getting like fruits and vegetables that are savory and colorful and juicy and making a fine meal and just enjoying the company of others. I think that's on offer here. This is, of course, like super fertile. So if you were looking to grow your family, this looks like an excellent time to engage in those behaviors that make babies, and it would be really romantic and pleasurable and fun, right? So please do use precaution if this is not something that you want. But yeah, on the whole, it just feels like a lovely evening or an afternoon, you know, playing Marco Polo with the kids in the pool, or, you know, any kind of creative pursuit that maybe you have been putting on the back burner or that you have been neglecting. You might be reinvigorated, you know, and it doesn't have to be fine art. It can be anything: cooking, gardening, quilting, inventing, singing, dancing. Any of those things just feel like they're going to get a nice infusion of energy. I think also that this being the house of children, if you're older and you have adult children or teenage children, something like that, where there maybe has been some estrangement or some challenges in your relationship, there's that word alleviation again that I keep thinking of, that there might be an opportunity to have some healed relationship with family or children or your art, whatever that is. And then again, disclaimer, you know, the pleasure appetite is probably going to be on overdrive. So just watch for overdoing it. Don't, you know, that one glass of wine too many, or I don't know what the cool kids are doing now, like the mocktails with mushrooms in them, or, you know, just take it easy with that. You know, don't go overboard if you can. Don't, you know, one too many hands at the blackjack table, something like that. So just watch for that. But on the whole, it just feels like sweet and romantic and pleasurable and a nice way to fill your cup a little bit, because, you know, in September, Saturn's moving back into your first house. You're going to get an eclipse in your first, one in your seventh as well. Some of the fall's astrology might be a little bit more intense for Pisces rising. So I think this feels like a nice moment to kind of like cushion the joints, you know, before you have to dive into September's astrology a bit.
If we think, Emily, about the fifth house as the second from the fourth, and we use some of the logic from Indian astrologies as a Dharma house, and it's interesting that this Dharma house is considered to be the place where your soul's dharmic inheritance, the things that are natural to the soul, that are essential to what you bring into this lifetime, the most fortunate and benefic of those qualities that your soul has, whether that's skills, inclinations, personality traits, that your inheritance of the good fortune of your soul and its natural dharma is found here. What I love to think about with Venus Jupiter conjoining is when I look at my little girls, I can see, oh yeah, they've come into this lifetime with stuff. They've got stuff. They've got good stuff. They've got some difficult stuff. This could be a moment where Pisceans are getting to see and realize the fruits of some of their past lives, good karma. Not in a, I don't want to think about that in a reward and punishment kind of way, but like, what are the best things that you come in with that translate into your gifts and the most beautiful parts of you? And how are you getting to harvest some of the fruits of those things right now? That can show up in so many interesting ways. If you're a lovely person, you might find that friendships and good relationships or good things happening in relationships are coming to you because you're just a lovely person, and it's time to receive some of the benefits of being just such a lovely person. Yeah. If you are someone who has creative gifts that are just ready to show themselves, I find it interesting that I had so many fifth house transits going on at the time when astrology came into my life, because it felt like an old friend was coming back. I still had to develop it. I still had to work it. I'm sure all of you feel similarly. There's certain things, like I would imagine for Emily, perhaps I'm just pontificating here, but dance, you have a background in dance. I feel like fifth house is oftentimes is what people take to something like dance or an instrument or something. And while you have to develop it, there's a flow that happens really naturally, like, oh, I know this already, I'm just having to remember it or something like that. I feel like the 5th house Venus Jupiter conjunction can bring forth things or put you on a track for things to very naturally blossom and show themselves that have some past life history with you already, that are just like, here's some of the best stuff you've got, and it's ready to show itself. I didn't know astrology was a gift of past life continuation until I was 30. You know what I mean? In the way I think about it as a 5th house kind of thing. So I just wonder what's showing up right now that's like, yeah, look at this flower growing in my garden. That's a part of who I am and my blessings and good fortune in this lifetime. And I just didn't even see it coming, you know?
Yeah. That's exactly what my experience with coming to astrology was too. It really felt like a coming home, a remembering.
Yeah. It's a lot of people talk about it that way, and I'm not surprised to see connections between the 9th and 5th house rulers, or some combination of connections in the chart between some of those places. Anyway, anyone want to add anything to Pisces before we close shop for the day?
I'll just say quickly, a good friend is a Pisces rising, and she just released her first album on Spotify. And I think that is such a good 5th house, the release of the brainchild. And when you're an artist and you release your poem or your song, your album, your painting into the world, like there does have to be a surrender and like a letting go. And I think the Venus and the Jupiter conjunction is really supportive of just, all right, I'm going to release it. And I know it's meant to be released.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And then isn't it funny how like one of the ways that we think about the natural outpouring of our Dharma in the 5th house in this is a creative release of my soul's Dharma is through our children. If you have children, that's one way of thinking about what that Dharma is. That's fascinating because like the mirror archetype we were mentioning earlier, they become mirrors for us in so many ways. So anyhow, this has been fantastic. I want to tell you how you can stay in touch with our wonderful hosts throughout the year. Obviously, you'll see this group of us now each month. So we're like a band. We're going to learn how to play together over the first couple of months. It's very exciting. I'm going to tell you how you can stay in touch with each person here. Let's hold on. Let me go to Kelsey. Kelsey, you can find on Instagram at Metanova Girl. Do I have the right handle there, Kelsey?
Yes, you do.
And then website is astrologyrx.com. And I'm assuming people could book a reading there if they wanted to.
Yes, I have my calendar all set up on the homepage. So you just find a time that works for you.
Perfect. Amazing. And obviously, Kelsey produces astrological content on Instagram, so you can check that out. I'm going to go to Mal next. Mal on Instagram is @_MALLORY HASTY. Do I have that right, Mal?
Yep. And website and YouTube are the exact same name. So you guys can find me there.
And the links are in your Instagram profile as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. And Mal has classes, and I believe in the Chicagoland area, you do a lot of things in person too, right?
Yes. If you happen to be in the Chicagoland area, please find me on Instagram because I run the meetup group in Chicago. So I also do virtual classes and virtual readings, but I have a community here in Chicago.
And you can link up to get a reading through the website, I assume, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. Let me switch to Q. Q, you can find on Instagram at SensualNoiree. Do I have that right?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, and there people can find links to all of your stuff, right?
Right in the bio, y'all. It's right in there. So go ahead, click it, and let's connect. And I do take like in person in Minneapolis area and then virtual as well. So.
And you will, if you come out to our solstice and equinox gatherings, you'll often find Q in attendance. You can meet her and connect. I assume that we'll probably see you there again. So. Yeah.
And will.
You can book a reading too through your website. I assume that's people can set that up.
Yep.
All right, perfect. And then I'm going to Emily on Instagram at Emily T Astrology. Do I have that right, Emily?
That's it. Yeah.
Regular content, really lovely astrology content on Instagram. If you go to emilytatomer.com, that's going to be the website where you can book readings and stuff like that. I'd also just send you over to the Nightlight website. Emily does readings through our affordable reading service through October. So between now and October, if you need a flexible pricing point, Emily has her services through that, which is really generous and sweet. We really appreciate that. But you can check that out on nightlightastrology.com under the affordable readings tab. You'll find readings with Emily there as well.
Yeah.
And Emily, your regular content that you develop is on Instagram as well at Emily T Astrology. Do I have that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And it's been a real honor to be part of the affordable reading service. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So yeah, come see me.
Yes. Those spots, because people may ask, those spots are typically open for people who've completed our 1, 2, and first 3-year programs, right? So 1, 2, and 3. At the end of year 3, your final exam can go as an audition for a spot in the reading service to gain experience reading for clients. So that's how that works. But this was wonderful. I'm so stoked to have you all and to continue collaborating over the next year. Remember, if you're here and you're like, where did Alex and Dana go? Their year of service to the channel is up, and we bring in new people each year now. And the goal behind this is to help facilitate the growth of promising astrologers by using the platform to help build other people's careers. I think I win and astrology wins when more astrologers are getting space to show their talents. I deeply believe that we all win together. Now, Alex, Dana, Whitney, Alexandra, you're going to see them developing some bonus content that'll be present on the weekends, just in case you haven't had enough Nightlight YouTube Monday through Friday with me. You can get some content from them, and they can keep turning their creative wheels and building and developing their work. So that's how things will develop. And we hope that you all have a great month of August, and we'll look forward to seeing you again for September's horoscopes. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.